Businesses transitioning towards sustainability is the need of the hour, and that's the call from the United Nations as well. And particularly, IT sector across the globe, and especially in India, is at the forefront of this transition.
Overall, there is an increased emphasis on putting in greater focus on sustainability across the organizations.
Businesses will not do it unless and until you see a significant impact on the one thing that matters, which is the profit and loss statement.
Some gains will be short-term gains, which will reflect in your P&L, and but then the whole idea for ESG, I think, is more for long-term.
Newer generation is not necessarily to be proven though, but not necessarily seeking the only thing which is your instant gratification in money and hierarchy. They want to learn, number one, and number two, they work, have a sense of purpose where they're working.
Pleasant evening to everyone. I'm Dikshit Pinto, Deputy Editor here at TimesBridge and Business Insider India. This is the third episode of a series of Sustainability Forum that we are conducting this year as a year-long awareness campaign under the theme Only One Earth, Sustaining People, Planet and Prosperity. Today's topic, how Indian tech sector is enabling sustainability transitions in India. Thank you all our panelists for joining us, and they are the industry leaders, business leaders in the Indian tech sector, and will be in the best position to shed light on this topic. We especially are grateful to NASSCOM for collaborating with Business Insider India on this journey towards a better tomorrow. I'll start by introducing the panelists one by one, and we can jump into the questions. So we have Seema Ganekar, Chief Delivery Officer, Industrial Products Head and Head Sustainability, L&T Technology Services. Welcome, Seema.
Thank you, Dikshit.
Shrikant Khara, CHRO Emphasis, is joining us despite ill health today. Thank you, Shrikant, for making time and joining us. Welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Jagdish Mitra, Chief Strategy Officer and Head of Growth at Tech Mahindra. Welcome, Jagdish.
Thank you, Dikshit. Thank you.
And we have Sangeeta Gupta, Senior VP and Chief Strategy Officer, NASSCOM. Welcome, Sangeeta.
Thank you so much.
So ESG transitions is gaining momentum across the globe. Trillions of dollars are flowing, and estimates suggest that 35 trillion US dollars of investment has flown towards ESG investing over the last 1 decade. And the projections suggest that next 5 years, this might well cross 50 trillion US dollars. Businesses transitioning towards sustainability is the need of the hour, and that's the call from the United Nations as well. And particularly, IT sector across the globe, and especially in India, is at the forefront of this transition, both by transitioning itself as well as enabling its clients to transition to a better tomorrow. The IT sector seems to be giving ESG approach more and more attention, as evident from meaningful engagement with multiple stakeholders and focused discussion in the board meetings as well. So we want to understand what's driving this change, and did COVID-19 pandemic have any kind of impact on this? We would like to start with you, Jagdish.
I think, thank you, Dikshit. The changes that are being driven are for a variety of reasons. One of them obviously is the fact that the workforce within the IT companies, which is a very resource-intensive knowledge workforce, is demanding it themselves. So they are all choice makers of doing what kind of product companies they work with, what kind of service companies they work with, and what is it doing to the ecosystem. So the talent pool that we work with is the first set of pool that are extremely aware, are extremely sensitive, are extremely concerned about the impact of sustainability on the work they do. And you can see it in every aspect. We were chatting about it before this. We do. The fact that this industry adopted hybrid work, the fact that this industry adopted working remotely are some of the tools and models that have demonstrated it. On top of it, I think IT industry, especially from an Indian context, is probably the most global industry coming out of India. So you get a chance to be able to work with a wide variety of organizations, and most of our organizations are corporations which are fairly large corporations, or some are digital natives which have just started, but they are all large corporations in markets which are extremely sensitive to it. So Europe markets, US markets, Australia, Japan, all the developed economies are primarily very sensitive to it. So we do get a sense of this from what our customers are looking for. So both sides, talent pools as well as associates or customers that we work with, are the big reason why IT companies are super active on the sustainability platform.
And if I was just to add to that, Dikshit, right, I think especially the S and the G of this industry, right, whether it was focused on diversity, whether it's focused on social inclusion, whether it's focusing on governance norms, I think these were already very important priorities for the technology industry. I think what we've now seen, and I think the larger companies, especially the companies on this panel, have been doing ESG even prior to COVID. But overall, there is an increased emphasis on putting in greater focus on sustainability across the organization. So whether you see client RFPs for startups, it's about funding that they can get. As Jagdish mentioned, it's about talent that is coming in. There are a multitude of factors that is now accelerating the ESG agenda for the industry. And I think as an industry, we've always prided ourselves of staying ahead. And I think that is really our focus also to say, this is an agenda that we can drive and differentiate ourselves in the marketplace also.
I'll just add to one point. Of course, the point which Jagdish mentioned on the talent pool angle is very, very valid. So the awareness of our employee base actually makes it a bit easier for us as an organization to drive the ESG agenda. There was the social and governance element. We have been almost there, I would say, again, as an industry. The environmental part is where now we are emphasizing more as all organizations on how we can try to comply more and more to the expectations from customers. I will add one point. The way we have seen the standardization happening in terms of maybe quality assurance, like we had the CMMI or ISO certifications, and the industry as such, the complete service industry in India did follow and ensured that all their centers are having the compliance for the required SEI CMM standards. Similar thing happened with people CMMI. And now this trend is there for the sustainability part also. So of course, the ESG compliance and different third parties which are available also, like Sustainalytics or EcoVadis or CDP certification. Our customers are also demanding as part of their selection criteria that maybe service providers like us really comply and ensure that we are there in the low risk zone, or we are there having our policies identified very, very clearly, which meet the ESG compliance. And that is one of the factors also which is driving. So it is not only very few select, I would say top 15, 20 companies, but whole lot of companies which are trying to ensure that we follow the norms and become compliant to be with the peers and, if possible, ahead in the race on this particular ESG angle.
Most of the speakers have really commented on the genesis of the ESG movement, and it applies to us too, except three small differentials as far as emphasis is concerned. Number one, we were in the in the CSR part of it even before it became statutory and mandatory, almost for 20 years. So it was a kind of an organic shift from the CSR activities which we did, which are around water conservation, forest conservation, soil, entrepreneurship at a local, rural level, and so on and so forth, which we used to do almost for 20 years. So it became a kind of an organic thing to make it into a much more framework-oriented ESG practices. So for us, that's number one. Number two was very simply the cost elimination programs which used to happen in terms of how much of energy do we reduce in our server centers, how much of cloudification can happen so that the energy can be saved. So energy-based and fuel-based, cost-driven approaches also was an organic development into ESG, number two. And number three is our parent company, Blackstone, which happens to be one of the biggest PE firms, has taken a mandate for itself of 10% reduction in emissions. So that also has been passed on a mandate to all the portfolio companies, which happen to be one of us. That's the only three additions to have to what my speaker said.
Thanks, Shrikant. I think Seema pointed this out. Even though ESG transition is happening across the globe, the E in ESG takes precedent in most cases, and environment and especially climate change has become a priority for most businesses, especially post Paris Agreement. So, what specific strategies are Indian tech companies considering to lessen their carbon footprint and achieve carbon neutrality?
We are trying to increase our usage of electricity coming from the renewable sources as much as possible. Cases where, especially for LTTS, we have big campuses in Mysore or in Baroda, and we have plenty of place available. So we are actually having the solar panels installed in wherever areas available in our existing campus and trying to draw energy from that. So that is, I would say, at least something which is in progress. We are doing it campus after campus. There is another interesting thing which we have done is we have electrical vehicle charging stations which we know are coming up across the country in maybe at least as the electrical vehicle traction picks up. But in LTTS, what we have done is we have actually built up a charging station for electrical vehicles, but it is completely based on renewable energy. So we have used solar panels. We have installed the hydrogen fuel also as one of the elements for driving the energy from the storage which we are consuming or which we are using from solar. And so the power which we are driving from electrical grid is actually negligible. We are using, again, it is not picked up to an extent a lot in our employee base, but whatever electrical vehicles which are in use, we are actually getting it charged based on our renewable source. And we are also packaging it as one of our offerings for some of the utility companies and some of the other campuses. So this, I would say, is one of the different things which we are doing. And as Shrikant was mentioning, a lot of our IT usage, we are ensuring that we are making use of the infrastructure as a service offering, which is predominantly again using the renewable source and hence reducing our energy consumption based on whatever servers and other IT infrastructure which it was consuming. So more focus is on energy usage reduction as such, and majority of our customers, you can assume, are maybe in the OEM segment for transportation or for industrial products or for medical. We are actually able to help them on how the products which our customers are developing and how their manufacturing process which they are using, how we can optimally help them in designing it to reduce the carbon footprint. So what we have done is we have the UN sustainability goals which are there based on the Paris Agreement, some 17 national goals which are there. We are putting our offerings in line with those sustainability goals. So there are about 8 areas which are more of clean energy usage or climate action, which we have been able to support for the customers to reduce their usage, specifically for their products.
So from a perspective of what we are doing internally, I mean, two things. One, obviously, as a group, as within the Mahindra Group, as well as in Tech Mahindra, there are a lot of initiatives, all pretty much similar in terms of energy usage. We are trying to use technology to be able to drive where the wastage is happening and where we could monitor. Could we use sustainable products? Is really one of the big differentiation in our procurement process. So, for example, very simple things like when you put an air conditioning system or when you put our offices with LED bulbs or when you're putting together vehicles that transport our associates from one part to the other, or for within our campus, cycles to be given to be able to move from one block to the other block. I think, those are some of the changes that have happened as part of the whole process, and it's resulted. We're one of the top 3 companies recognized by Dow Jones in sustainability, Terracotta Award, and so on and so forth. So, that recognition in the companies happened. But I think connected to your previous statement, Dikshit, is the opportunity for Indian IT, and NASSCOM has played a big role in sort of putting this together. There, Sangeeta, I'm sure will talk about it, that we are putting together an appropriate measurement criteria, that so that there becomes a little bit of a standard in NASSCOM. How do you measure it? Like almost to the question of CMM level 5 type of discussion. Everyone can say whatever they want to say, but how do they judge? Because this will become a selection criteria. This will become a selection criteria for people to choose me as a partner or not. And how do we make sure we drive some of this? So that role of NASSCOM is really coming to forefront. I think the big opportunity for the industry and for all of us is the whole opportunity around sustainable tech. How do you use technology to be able to convert, the goals, not just from take the sustainability goal into the 17 goals like Seema talked about, but also make it sustainability in terms of performance, sustainability in terms of predictability of your business performance. All those activities are now tech driven. So today, for example, the first thing that we are implementing with our customers is dashboard. Do you know where you are? Do you know if you don't know where you are, you don't know what to fix and what to emphasize on? Do you know what your supply chain is? Do you know where your employees, when they come to the work, what is their footprint that they're leaving in? So the first job that we are doing really is a homegrown application that we have built, which is our IP, and we are implementing that as part of the journey. But I want to just highlight the role of NASSCOM in this, in making sure that India gets projected as one of the big new vertical opportunities in sustainable tech.
Yeah, no, I can add to what Jagdish said, Dikshit, in 2 parts, right? One is how do you drive ESG advocacy more within the industry? So obviously the leading companies are the front runners. They've built out a lot of tools, practices, technologies. At NASSCOM, what we're now trying to focus is how can we learn from all of these and help the next set of companies embark on the ESG journey, right? So I think even simple things like how do you measure what your carbon footprint is, right? What are the right tools to use? What are some of the best practices that have worked for other companies that these next set of companies can go and emulate? So our focus right now is a lot on advocacy. Of course, there's a whole focus on saying, is there a more tech services sector standard that we can collaborate and build out? Because today there is a multitude of standards and different companies, organizations measure it differently. So over a period of time, can we also build something that's more relevant for this sector? Because you're not by nature a polluting industry, right? So how do you set your benchmarks that are different from the others? And I think the third is really the point that both Seema and Jagdish talked about. So we're really currently focused on building out a report on saying, what is the sustainability opportunity that the tech industry in India can go out and grab, right? And what are the themes under that? Where are the business opportunities? What kind of IP and assets are people building out? So yeah, it's a wide variety of activities that are currently underway.
Shrikant, anything to add?
No, I think everything has been covered literally. Don't want to add for the sake of adding, but surely, one was this, what is your differentiated strategy is the question that you asked. And I think Seema covered it pretty well in terms of right from, our internal energy conservation attempts, which all of us more or less doing in a different grades, of course. Like, for example, energy tapping of using solar energy in all our offices is something that we're doing regularly. Water conservation is a big one. So very quickly cover the topics. I'll not get into details of it. The most important part which Seema covered is the customer services. I'll just cover them in 3 broad areas. Again, she's given it the flavor of what all kind, for example, reporting, data, helping companies to prepare reporting and so on. I'll call it data services, reporting services, and then fundamentally helping cloudification and moving and migration of that is one of our key business areas. We're trying to convert it to an ESG flavor to it, in terms of why cloudification, not just in terms of efficiency, but also in terms of energy saving and so on. So these are 3 broad areas: data services, reporting services, and cloudification. These are three categorizations which I'm trying to do. That's it. But fundamentally, it's more or less the same thing what other speakers have spoken about. Yeah.
Quite a few insightful points actually that all of you have shared. And these are all very important starting points for this transition towards sustainability. And a majority of investors, I think more than 80% of the investors, as per the recent surveys, agree that ESG factors can translate into financial impacts, and all businesses should slowly transition into sustainable practices. But there are a few business leaders or businesses or startups who still believe the don't believe in the real world implications of such approaches. They continue to question or say we are too small to transition now, or it's too early for us, and we may not be getting any benefit as a company by doing all this. If you come across such questions from your clients or from your stakeholders, how do you tackle this? How do you respond to such questions? We can start with you, Jagdish.
Dikshit, I think that's why the very fact that I think it helps, one of the times we get most questions is that, have you eaten your own dog food? So, probably not a very good discussion at lunch, but, from the conversations that we typically take to our customers, the good part of this is that most of our IT companies have implemented it, right? And this is not because you have to get a tick in the box. All of us have shown significant impact on our P&L, whether it in terms of reduction in, energy costs, reduction in any of the savings that we put together on waste, improvement in productivity. All of those aspects are measurable metrics. And, for example, Sangeeta touched upon the other part of, SG and said diversity and so on and so forth. The moment, Dikshit, I'm a firm believer, businesses will not do it unless and until you see a significant impact on the one thing that matters, which is the profit and loss statement. And so that the journey to that profit and loss statement is what you need to draw. The moment you are able to show that, hey, listen, here it is. I am a company which does this business. I am of XYZ size, but that's okay. We don't, from different sizes and scales across the industry. And that's where the whole NASSCOM role of what has happened across the larger companies, the middle companies, the small companies, and how it has impacted it is a big case study. So what we typically tend to do is take case studies of preference and see how has that impacted your benefit, what do you need to do, and what's the long-term goal to it. Obviously, you're right. The smaller guys are today going to solve their problems of today. How, it's all good talk. If you tell them 5 years later, everything is going to be very nice and you'll breathe a better peace, better air, in Delhi, especially, that's our biggest peeve point. But the point I'm trying to make is there's no other conviction that you can do apart from putting together examples of what has happened. And that's the big advantage that this IT industry has, that they've proven it to themselves with changes in the balance sheet. That's what we use to showcase to them. Yes, certain cases, it will be a journey. Everything will not happen overnight, but the fact that your customers, your business may not be there. Your talent will be getting lost because people will not join you. So you will get not just a one whammy, but a triple whammy. You will lose out on your cost saving or a benefits opportunity. You're going to lose out on customer preferences on where you stand on your sustainability index, and your employees or talent will not join you. So most people get it.
I will add here, some gains will be short-term gains, which will reflect in your P&L. But then the whole idea for ESG, I think, is more for long-term. And so I just want to mention here that we talk about the ESG framework, but to ensure that we are actually having a measurable targets, there is this science-based initiatives, SBTI interface is also there. And many of the product companies across the world, and even as LTTS, we have actually signed up for SBTI. And that we have to actually declare and mention in what period you will become carbon neutral. So you have to take an oath for this as a company and you have to set your targets. We have done that as LTTS, and we have seen that many product companies are actually signing up for SBTI because it is a very measurable framework. And it is not left as, especially the social and governance elements are maybe left a bit open-ended in terms of what all improvements you can do. But in case of environmental benefits, the more measurable you are, it is easy to track, easy to plan, and also easy to plan the investments which are required to be done now, but what results you are going to get maybe by 2030. All nations, for that matter, have declared what they want to achieve by 2040 and 2050. Similarly, all industries as such, because they need to definitely give more, I would say, relatively near-term goals, have given the targets of what they would like to become by 2030. And SBTI does help in that, and we should try to take help of those measurement methods, I would say.
Simple answer to your question. I'll try to put it as short as possible. I completely agree with Jagdish and Seema. Your question was, what would you tell the people, the startups, the smaller companies? That was the question, right? What would you tell them if they're not embarked on? I'll give you a different spin. And being an HR guy, I'll probably give you an HR spin to it. Very clearly, all of you must be reading about the high attrition, big attrition. I think Jagdish did touch upon it right in the beginning. Employees are seeking a purpose. They're no more. And let's not forget the millennials, or whatever you want to call them, Gen Z and the new generation which is coming, their mindset, or post-COVID babies. That's a new term that is being given. Their mindset, the way they work, the way they look at things, there's no touch point to them. They're coming straight, getting inducted into the work and working from home. For them, if all companies, whether it's LTTS, Tech Mahindra, Emphasis, all of them have the same flavor, then there is something wrong we are doing. Each one of us have to give a different flavors to it. One, we try to do it through the technology and the business that we do, but that's not enough in my view. The purpose of the company, I think you read enough articles, HBS is talking about a lot. The younger generation is seeking a purpose. We were a different generation. We wanted to succeed, we want to grow up the hierarchy. Probably we already did. But then the newer generation is not necessarily, to be proven though, but not necessarily seeking the only thing which is your instant gratification in money and hierarchy. They want to learn, number one. And number two, they have a sense of purpose where they're working. So it's good for a company, even if it's a startup, to twist the purpose towards whatever they're doing in business has a higher purpose to it, which is a social purpose or a ESG purpose, could be a good idea to differentiate yourself. That's what I would say to them.
And if I just was to quickly add to that discussion, if I'm a very young startup that is fighting for survival, I think ESG can overwhelm me, right? So I think it's also important to think about fit to size, right? That if it is mostly about environment, and if it's environment, it's maybe just measuring your carbon footprint. Is that the one thing they can start doing simply, rather than saying you need to do all the three pillars and you need to do hundreds of things under those three pillars, right? So I think there has to be, and that's part of the role NASSCOM will be playing, is helping some of these younger companies to say, how do you get started? Because if we give them all the, high-end metrics that, some of the larger companies here are tracking, they'll really get overwhelmed with the data. So I think finding that fit to size for a younger company, and how do you get started with small things, is really how one will have to embark on that journey. At least that's what we are hearing right now.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think anyone would advocate that you go to the whole hog. It could be as simple as stopping plastic bottles.
Exactly.
It could be as simple as having a diverse workforce.
Exactly.
Don't even go towards energy, servers, all the big companies that we do. Diversity of your workforce. Recognize LGBT, for example. Get handicapped employees into your company. Some companies are already doing it. It's as simple as that. So, absolutely. Completely agree.
Moving to the other end of the spectrum, when you guys rightly pointed out, it's difficult for smaller companies to adopt, so they can start small and slowly, gradually shift towards sustainable practices. But we are, across the globe, we are seeing many larger companies struggling to find a balance between their sustainability practices and reporting. And greenwashing has been one of the biggest point of discussion over the last few years, and especially this year with so many SEC investigations going on. So, Sangeeta, if I could direct this question to you as NASSCOM, and in general, how Indian tech industry is positioned to tackle this issue, and how are we trying to instill more seriousness about this approach as not just a communication tool or a PR thing that you should do. This is something that should be in a DNA of a company. How are you trying to instill this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Dikshit. And like I said in the beginning, the advantage for the tech industry is we are starting from a position of strength because by nature, we are not a company, not an industry that is naturally polluting like a manufacturing industry maybe, or many other sectors could be. So I think we have no agenda for greenwashing, right? Because we are not going to be targeted for pollution or climate environmental issues directly, right? So I think there is the greenwashing agenda is necessarily not something that is top of mind for this industry, or this industry is being accused of directly, right? But I think as technology is becoming so ingrained into everything that is getting done, right? So it's no more just about the technology services or the engineering industry that we started with. It is now ingrained into every single day, every single footprint of what we do. So it's very important for companies of all sizes to think about sustainability, climate change, ESG overall. And that is really our focus, saying, one, you need to think about it and do self-assessments first, right? But do honest self-assessments. If you are honest to what you can do and what your goals can be in a 2, 3, 5-year time frame, that would be the way to move forward. And particularly for companies that are getting started on this journey. But I think, again, it's a little bit of a repeat. Good part of this industry is they've always wanted to stay ahead. They've, all the entrepreneurs in this industry, the CEOs in this industry recognize that if they have to differentiate themselves, they have to be adopting or leading with some of these practices. And that's why it's much more easier for us when we go and talk to our members to say, this is something that they should be focusing on. You get a lot of attention in the room. And I think about this almost like the point Shrikant mentioned about diversity when we started in maybe early 2000s, right? That time, nobody really was talking about even gender diversity. But I think it's been a journey, and today it's a real boardroom agenda, right? Where companies of all sizes are thinking, are really acting on diversity and not diversity beyond gender today. So I would really put it in that time, in that kind of a discussion.
I will add here, Dikshit, it is more of, as you said, how do we ensure that all our employees are included in this journey with wholehearted support to an extent. So for LTTS, actually the vision which we have worked out, and that vision, to be very frank, is there for last few months. So it is not that it was worked out after the ESG framework we decided to adopt, but that is engineering sustainable tomorrow through technology and innovation. So as I mentioned, we are an engineering services company. So we work on a lot of product development for our customers. So we have been doing technology and innovation is there in our DNA. But are we helping our customers to produce products which are going to help for their existence over again a long period? And hence we link it with the sustainable tomorrow service which we are providing to the customers.
Yeah, I would build on what Seema said. The only way to make sure that greenwashing is, the whole idea of projecting for a PR activity is reduced is when you actually put these policies into practice. And your brand is talking about it. What is our brand? Our brand is our people. So at the end of the day, when 150,000 of TechMighties or thousands of number of people across the IT industry in the companies that you have, LTTI or Emphasis or any of these, they start talking that our policies are such where we can't, our offices lights go off the moment we come move out of the area, or our solar panels are the ones through which the energy is consumed from, or we are encouraged to be able to use cycles inside the campus. Those key messages will drive the thing that it is not, what you see is what you get. So you get people a lot more involved in the whole policy. And so you'll have to put certain policies into place in order to make sure that it's not just a data reporting exercise.
To continue on this note only, Jagdish, Can you please share some of the trends that you are seeing that you feel have the maximum potential in guiding India towards sustainability, and share some case examples or best practices of good ESG or circular economy practices in India that you are seeing today?
See, a couple of things, from our perspective that we see as initiatives that are coming together. It's really introducing things like EVs, for example, is becoming a big trend. Not EVs as in only four-wheeler vehicles, but usage of all sorts of EV activities and vehicles that we are looking at to be able to encourage our associates, employees, putting together charging stations in the offices, not just ours, but you can see that happening now. Those are key trends in India that we have to emphasize, and we have to make sure that the councils that we operate in, and this again, NASSCOM and us play a very strong role in enabling this as we start to do this. So whether it are hubs like Bangalore, Gurgaon, Pune, Chennai, Noida, and many such other locations where the IT industry is very active, we have a big role to play that the local municipalities, local governments emphasize on the roles of those. But those are trends that I very much see. The other trend that I actively see is, for example, push by the government on LED. Significant push in the government by LED is about light efficiency. So that itself is a big push towards the driving of saying that's a big trend that's coming together. Similarly, plastic, I think Shrikant mentioned it. It's not a small topic in this country. This is a huge topic for us to be able to address it. From a objective of the 4 areas or 5 areas that I see as coming together as trends that at least I watch, our company watches in Tech Mahindra, and we as an industry watch, are advent of electric vehicles across the board, two-wheelers and four-wheelers, advent of making sure that the lighting and the IoT usage of sensors or sensor-based lighting and usage. Third is, as I said, in activities related to plastic cycling and recycling. And fourth is an area of carbon capture and storage. So this is becoming a critical set of trends that I see extremely healthy in terms of moving towards a sustainability measure.
I think we just talked about the trends which are there, maybe as an industry and as an organization, we need to definitely embrace. I will touch upon maybe some of the trends which we are seeing in the industry worldwide, and that is giving us opportunity to address as maybe services companies from India. We all talk about electrification for automobiles, and that is, of course, maybe has huge potential for us, not only for actually doing the designs for electrical vehicles, but then for the electrical charging station infrastructure. And in India, of course, it needs to be still picking up, and there are many standards which are around us, and hence, because it is not standardized, it actually increases the complexity, but at the same time, it also gives you more opportunity to really address within India. So as an industry, we should see how we can support that particular drive within India to get the infrastructure more and more robust for the electrical vehicle usage to increase. Some other industry trends which we have been seeing are because we need to use the clean fuels like ammonia or hydrogen or natural gases and all that. There are opportunities which are available for doing gasification, if I may say so, as a one trend which are coming in the industry. And we need to actively pursue those particular requirements and opportunities which are coming as well. The battery storage need also, and of course in India, there is a lot of emphasis which has been given by our government on hydrogen being used as a fuel, and hydrogen can be used as a storage entity, and there are big companies including L&T which are getting into the setup of plants for producing the electrolyzers and fuel cells, and we are also working closely with L&T as LTTS to support in the technology which is going to be used for setting up these particular plants. So the storage elements, I would say there is a big need where the teams need to build expertise on. Battery storage is something which we should develop the technology, and carbon capture elements. So even as LTTS, we are promoting what are the new ways, and we have filed some patents also on how maybe the carbon dioxide can be absorbed directly from the atmosphere, and by reaction with hydrogen you can develop a clean fuel. So if we can give more emphasis on some of these R&D areas, it will help us to develop products in India based on these technologies. At the same time, we can support our customers globally as well.
Thanks, Seema. Shrikant, if you could shed some light we went through many best practices and examples and trends, but as tech businesses, how are you assessing your own ESG maturity, and how are you trying to maximize its impact and benefits across the sector, not just environment, but environment, social, and governance? How are you trying to achieve that?
Great. So I'll answer the second one first, and we'll come to how we measure. There are various frameworks, of course, which I'll cover later. But, it also leads to the earlier questions. I was about to answer that, but that kind of leads into what you just asked. Is we coined it as two things: tech for good in business and tech for good in society. So that leads to your earlier question of what are the investments and what are the trends we are betting on, apart from many other things which we're already doing. I want to talk about the differentiators that we're trying to create. Number one is responsible AI. Okay, how AI can really help in solving bigger challenges, okay, ethical challenges, and more importantly, the day-to-day tactical challenges. I mean, all three of them, how do we really, implement AI and get things done? Two, we tied up with Ashoka University and Plaksha for the AI part. For the second part, which I'm talking about, which is quantum computing, we believe that's the next big thing that's going to happen. So how is quantum really going to, quantum computing, which is the big shift that is supposedly happening? We do see it's far away. But research into it and getting into it would be a big advantage to ESG. We believe quantum computing by itself is going to solve most of the ESG problems. That's a belief. There's a lot of research going on. We tied up with IIT Madras and University of Calgary, Canada, in doing fundamental research in quantum computing. And the third one is greener cloud, of course. Okay. Cloud is one part. How to make cloud much more greener, and how do we really, fund research into these areas? That is as far as business is concerned. Now, as far as tech for good is concerned, I talked about CSR. We've been investing and continuing to invest in two basic areas. One, how does technology innovation help in the fundamental aspects of the society? For example, one of the biggest advocacy being done for disability, emphasis has been at it for 20 years now, right at the policy level and even at a tactical level. For example, there's technology innovation, wheelchair innovation, for example. How do disability people really speak, or blind people can operate and do coding? Is a lot of innovation happening at the ground level. We are funding that kind of research so that the disability population gets back to the workforce and becomes more productive. That we believe directly relates to ESG. And of course, water conservation and other conservation activities, which we already talked about, is equally good, where technology also helps. Apart from traditional ways of conservation, technological ways of conserving things. For example, a couple of months back, we funded a company which has come out for a fundamental research on using some technology, which I'm not sure of what technology it is, but they're making the POCs and proving it to us and seeking funds. And we're ready to invest in it and make them more successful. So those are two parts. As far as your first question of measures are concerned, we do use a lot of measurement techniques, but most importantly, we have our own PE firm, is the owner Blackstone, which has come out with a framework, and we take the help of the likes of PwC, etc., to come and measure us, and not only kind of measure us, but also give us the kind of frameworks on which we measure. So that's something that we can continue to take and see where we are heading towards. As I said, the carbon footprint mandate given by Blackstone as a 10% has already been there. We try to adhere to it and see that we continuously measure ourselves against the target.
No, I think Shrikant has already covered it, right? There are a multitude of matrices and standards that are out there, whether it's GRI, whether it's SASB, And companies are today putting out a lot of data. If you see the annual reports of all these listed companies, you will find very detailed information on all the things they're doing around ESG. So it is being driven by the imperative to show how it is being measured, as well as communicate, like Shikant said, right? What are the matrices to follow? What are new things that are happening? So it's still a learning journey. I wouldn't say that, like the quality example, that CMM level 5 is the holy grail. I think we don't have the holy grail right now. So it is going to be a journey that each of these standards are very different things and different assessment parameters, right? So the idea is really to cover a wider gamut and be seen where you feature in all of these, what are the areas of improvement that you need to do, and continuously be able to measure that, right? And I think the fact that so many companies have a head of sustainability within their organizations is a recognition of the importance of this role, right?
A follow-up on that note, Sangeeta, in manufacturing sector, we have seen companies competing with each other rigorously in terms of ESG disclosures, and they want to get those sustainability awards out there. Do you see similar trends coming up in tech industry as well? Is there an internal competition between companies on the ESG sector?
I think it's an industry which loves to compete and loves to collaborate, right? Like we always say that, right? So yes, I think if you see all the awards, you will see tech companies among the top leaders in getting these sustainability or ESG awards and rankings. So there is healthy competition, but the fact that as NASSCOM, we can go to them and say, tell us what's working, what is not working. Here is a set of young companies that need to be mentored on their sustainability or ESG journey. People in this industry are very open to sharing, as you saw even on this call, right? I mean, nobody's saying this is my IP, I will not share what I'm doing. And I think that is really the culture that can help us actually achieve the goals of climate change and others that have been set up. So
I think the competition does help in excelling. So there are, of course, in our field also, as Sangeeta put it rightly, we learn from each other. We develop our own ideas to differentiate ourselves. And hence, if there are some awards which maybe more and more awards will be coined to promote how the ESG is getting, we are making it as part of our life for that matter. And then the organizations will put in maybe more and more efforts to see how they can differentiate themselves. And as such, the industry will benefit overall because today one company will get award, next year somebody else will get the award. So as long as the industry moves forward, it is good for everybody.
Yeah, and I just want to add to Shrikant's example, which he spoke about disability, right? I mean, I think Mphasis was the company that got all the disability awards for I don't know how many years. And I think as NASSCOM, every time we needed to figure out what to do, we would talk to them, right? And anybody who wanted to say, I want to build out this diversity agenda on bringing differently able people into the industry, we would say, go talk to Mphasis. So yeah, I think every company will have its own differentiators, but there's tons of appetite to collaborate.
No, absolutely. And I think to the point about competition, it's probably a good thing. From our perspective, it will help us constantly push the boundaries. If you link it back with the policies we talked about in the greenwashing topic, you're probably in a very good space. And if we've always taken on quality standards, we took the lead and we proved to the world that the Indian IT industry comes up with a certain status and standard. Here as well, we could probably do that, and we are cut above the rest. And obviously there will be the Oscars and there will be the regular, homemade Oscar awards. So you'll find multiple awards getting generated as well.
Excellent point, Jagdish. That brings to me my last question. From blockchain to AI, there are numerous emerging technologies coming up across the globe, and globally, many tech companies are jumping in on this trend to make use of these emerging technologies towards sustainability transition. So, how is Indian tech sector poised in this regard? Are we able to cater our clients with the services of new age services that are coming up across the globe, and how are we helping overall Indian businesses to transition towards sustainability?
Nikshit, very good question, and I think it aligns very well with where the industry should be going and how it is well aligned with the fact that if you have to develop what you or deliver to what we are trying to do in the ESG world and build a business, you can't do without the inputs that you talked about. So, whether it is AI, ML, IoT, industrial IoT, each of these aspects are extremely critical for us to be able to deliver the kind of commitments that we are making. But it's good because these technologies are not different for the rest of the growth areas that this industry needs to see. So we are all moving in one direction. It's not as if for sustainability you have to build certain set of capabilities that are not required for the rest of the industry. So whether Seema's work is around engineering or there is other work that emphasis does on software or applications and so on and so forth, along with what we in Tech Mahindra do or the rest of the NASSCOM guys do, AI, ML, blockchain, NFT. I mean, look at we in TechM took a little more role in terms of investing strongly in metaverse. We feel that metaverse has both opportunities. Metaverse will enable us to create the whole customer experience, the whole engagement, commerce. We launched this platform with Union Bank of India, with the Prime Minister launched as part of Digital India Week. But look at the opportunity of sustainability there, right? If you put metaverse into play with all our retail businesses, the customers that were traveling all the way to a store or a front end store is going to come down. So those significant changes that you're seeing on sustainability are driven by a common set of technology attributes that we need to build. They are no different. So if the company has to do well in the future and be relevant, it will still have to invest in AI, ML, blockchain, metaverse, leveraging usage of 5G based use cases. Each of those capabilities, manufacturing in terms of digital twins, and being able to look at Industry 4.0, all of those technologies are absolutely relevant for the business and for sustainability. So I don't think we need to do anything very special in terms of core technology. What you need to do different is the application in a very different. So you have to treat it as almost like an industry vertical, where you are going to trade an outcome which is very different in this case than where you use AI ML for banking.
So I think the digitalization drive, which has been happening in the last 3 to 4 years, is helping indirectly the sustainability drive, which we are now riding on maybe for last 1.5 years. The technologies used are same, and Jagdish did talk about metaverse and 5G. So these are the enablers. Actually, there will be more emphasis now given on how you can make again the journey which is not going to help you only in the digitalization but also from the sustainability angle. So there are different aspects which are getting added to the offerings, but then the solutions which need to be provided, of course, need to make use of all the advanced technologies which are being used by people. Without that, we will not be able to build the solutions.
Yeah, from my side, nothing much to add. Exactly what I did talk about: tech for good in business and tech for good in society. And I did talk about one small difference is AI, ML. Yes, talked about a lot, but there's a thing called ethical AI. And there's a new term which we'll keep hearing going forward. It's called trust architecture. Okay, AI is as good as the algorithm is as good as the person who builds the algorithm. It can be a crooked algorithm. It can give a what you call false negatives and send you on the false path. But the ethical element of that, which I think Microsoft talks a lot about it, but we do believe that's playing a big role. And of course, I already talked about quantum, which I personally also believe is going to be a big deal once it comes into play, because it's going to change the whole face of computing. Okay, the speed of computing with the data crunching, the analytics that quantum computing do is going to be a sea change. That can bring in a lot of benefits to ESG as a motion across the world, including prediction of temperatures, prediction of various calamities that are happening around. It'll help a lot, is my personal belief. And I do believe that's something that we are investing in and could become something big in the future.
So we have come to the end of the panel. But before we close, if anyone has any other commitments, please feel free to carry on. The topic for today was how Indian tech sector is enabling sustainability transitions in India, and we have got some insightful points on that. But if we have in case missed out anything, please feel free to add it to your concluding remarks before we close.
Well, I'll just give my views on it. I think this is one of those which has the opposite of double whammy. It's the double benefit. It's a double-decker ice cream, if you may. It's got the benefit of running the organization with purpose, which is the big opportunity that I think we have with sustainability, but also creating a very large business opportunity for Indian IT service providers for the world. Because I don't think anyone has cracked it as much as we have in India. And here is an opportunity for us to create a completely new revenue stream and create a market opportunity, which has jobs, startups. I don't know whether you're aware, $1 billion of venture fund happened to start in sustainability startups in India. So that's the nature of the opportunity that we are looking at if we are able to circle this together.
Maybe I can just conclude with saying that technology has become the foundation for everything, and technology combined with ESG readiness can actually be the key differentiator for businesses, for governments, for citizens, and I think that is really the purpose and focus behind the whole ESG agenda for the technology industry.
Nothing for me. I think we covered all that.
Yes, I nothing from me, but I like the way Jagdish said it. It is opposite of double whammy. So we have to coin a word for that separately.
Thank you so much, everyone, for the insightful discussion.